Good afternoon, or good evening, or indeed good morning, depending where you are in the world. My name is Michael Londesborough, and it's my great privilege to welcome you all to the fifth Global Science Café Czech Sciences. And I welcome you to we've got a little COVID-safe bubble here, so that's the reason why I don't have a face mask. So welcome. And maybe a bit at the beginning, I want to tell you just briefly about the idea of the Global Science Café Czech Centres. So the idea is that we have a forum where we can debate and discuss popular scientific themes with the best Czech scientists, economists, innovators, or indeed professionals. And this is organized by the Czech centers and shared within the entire Czech center network, which stretches 25 branches across 3 continents of our planet. So welcome all. The Czech Centres, of course, is a state-funded organization that's within the framework of the Ministry of Foreign Affairs of the Czech Republic. And as such, it's a key instrument for the international diplomacy of the Czech Republic and the Ministry of Foreign Affairs. And the idea of the Czech Centres really is a striving to support and to promote Czech culture and Czech innovations and technological achievements, and also artistic achievements. So we're looking to cover areas of Czech art, the creative industries of the Czech Republic, and also Czech scientific discoveries and innovations. So today, we're going to be talking about a very current zeitgeist theme, and that's education, in particular looking towards the future of education and the role technology and digitalization is playing and will play in our education system. And here to discuss this topic with me, I'm very delighted to present to you all at home. We've got here Petra Bakajsová and Vítek Škop. Now, nice. Thank you for coming, both of you.
Thank you.
They're joining me here in our bubble of safety. Petra is a principal at a local school, the Livingston Elementary School here in Prague. She's a former teacher, as well as being a former IT trainer. She believes in the power of technology, which is driven by change, and the power of people. So those are the kids, the teachers, and indeed parents. Petra and her team at her school have been leaders in the implementation of technology into the classroom, and not just for technology's sake. Petra is very keen that all innovation, whether it be on online schooling or innovative teaching methodology, is bringing value. That's the key here. It's a bringer of value, not just technology for technology's sake. Next to Petra is Vítek Škop, and Vítek is a graphic designer, so he's not coming from the educational sphere, but is producing something for the educational sphere. He's a graphic designer. He was a graduate of the Academy of Arts, Architecture and Design in Prague, here in Prague, and he's very much promoting the idea that design should be meaningful, and we're going to be talking about that in the context of education in a bit. During his studies, he completed internships in London, in Barcelona, and in New York. And if I'm not mistaken, during your term in New York, you started a project called Vividbooks.
That's right.
And that project became your diploma work, and subsequently you've transformed that into a successful company. So Vividbooks, very briefly, we'll be talking about them in much more depth presently, but Vividbooks are interactive textbooks for children, and their goal is simple: to make science for school children around the world more enjoyable. Vítek, Petra, welcome. So I'm going to start the discussion in a very general and wide context, and that is, to what extent does education really need to change?
That's a really difficult question, and I do not really think there is an answer to it, because education needs to be changing constantly because of its nature. There is no end to this process. To what extent? Well, it's hard to say. We've seen 1.5 years of sci-fi or something we couldn't imagine before. And on one hand, it's super fast and very challenging, but on the other, it's amazing what we've done and what we've seen, everything we've discovered that works or maybe works less. And we need to change that.
Okay, so you're saying that education needs to be plastic. It needs to be able
Hmm.
to adapt quickly to changes in society,
Hmm.
changes in, but also between changes in technology. How does technology help? Because we're living certainly in an age where the increase in the importance of technology to our economy and to our society, to our
Hmm.
personal lives, is really going up fast. Is it also making a big impression in education?
Um, Before COVID, I think we had a lot of this debate whether use or not to use. Maybe it's more Czech related, maybe it has to do with our context. But I've been to many heated discussions and debates whether technology is killing the process or not. And I think that now, obviously, the debate is over because we all are using technology to get in touch with kids and their parents and allow kids to get in touch with each other. So this is over now. The question is how to make it purpose driven, not just for the technology's sake. And what I always appreciate and support my team in doing is take their own objective and try to find the tool to get there, even for them, either for themselves or for the particular child, depending on his or her needs.
I see. So the teachers working at your school under your management are coming to you with suggestions about what would really work, what could help me
Hmm.
in my delivery of our educational policy, and that technologies have been identified which can really make an impact
Hmm.
there. And I mean, do all technologies work well, or is this a case you've got to be very careful which technology you select?
These days we don't have time to be careful because we have kids who've been online for months, and you're constantly trying to improve the experience anyhow. So it's very much about trying and failing, and I think it's much better than looking for ideal solution to this particular area or everything. So it's very much about try and fail, which is actually good because this is what we are trying to promote in kids as well. That failure is something where you can actually learn and go further. What I really like about teachers is that most of them know quite exactly what they need. When you ask teachers what it actually is that they need, most of them will tell you quite exactly. So they're able to describe the problem, talk about the innovation that may help. But at the same time, as head of the school, I know that I have the duty to ask quite regularly.
So you're using technology as a problem-solving device
Hmm.
for your teachers, and uh, shall we take? I know you've got a video prepared, which
Hmm.
actually gives us a few examples of where technologies have worked well. You said that it's a
Mm.
trial and error basis,
Yeah.
but can we maybe see a video of
Maybe
Petra's school?
before the video, I
Yeah,
would just like to introduce what you're going to see, because what you're going to see is not very much about failure. These are people who already tried
yeah.
the way, and some of them really perfected it. And it's, even though it's quite short, you're going to see a person using green screen, interactive board, creating challenging motivational video, or even something which is supposed to, help kids move a bit more. So this is something kind of top notch, and I wouldn't want other teachers around the world to be demotivated by it, saying, I'm not going to be there in 10 years. The thing is that it really helps to promote the technology where the teacher needs it, but at the same time, online showed us that we need to reinvent tasks and change the language of the
Right.
teacher.
So it's like a showcase of sort of positive examples where the implementation of new
Yeah.
technologies has had a good impact.
I'll
Well,
comment on that later, but now let's
let's
have a look at the
let's have a
video.
look. Well, I'm definitely going to be trying that at home, to do a bit more
Go for
exercise.
it.
I'm going
Go
to start
for
to
it.
get dressed when
Yeah.
standing on a chair. But yeah,
That's actually funny. It's sports challenge because many parents asked us to do anything to make their kids move.
yes.
It was specifically in those gloomy months of January and February when the weather doesn't help really. And so two of our teachers started those sports challenges, and every week they send another challenge, and kids can actually make their own videos and send it back. That was about sports. But what we've seen in the video, where teachers actually using technology to reach something or do what they need to do, even though kids are not with them. And you've seen Albert doing the green screen, and actually he brought himself into the textbook because he found that when he's instructing kids being in the textbook and they can still see his face and mimics, the response is much better, the results are better. Whilst when he just shares the screen, it's kind of dead and lost. They tend to distract, go somewhere else, or ask him 100 times again what they're supposed to do. Kate was using interactive board, which sounds very simple, but it changed those lessons for young kids in English so much that I think that she'll be doing it when coming back offline again. She'll be just continuing using Jamboard, regardless of whether she's online or offline. We've seen Denise doing geometrics, which is very, very hard to do, so she would try with different devices. And last but not least, there was Martin creating a motivational video, making a little bit fun of himself because we didn't know how to get through to teenagers who at a certain moment kind of slumped into lack of communication, lack of response. They were there, they were completing their tasks, it was kind of dead. They really appeared to be just dead behind the monitors. So we thought that we might do something like project-based week and offer challenges, and all the teachers would make their short videos. I was amazed by the quality and fun effects. And they would send those videos to kids, inviting them to their challenge. And the response was really great. We really liked that.
Fantastic. So, Vítek, we're listening to hear from Petra for several examples of technology being a problem solver. Is this what you mean when you talked about in your introduction, the bio you sent, that this concept of meaningful digitalization? Is this what you're talking about?
Yeah, absolutely. And I would like to bring an example how we started with Vividbooks and what was this idea all about, because that would follow what Petra was saying. Like somebody trying to solve the problem what they currently have. So at the beginning, I was a guy fascinated by the technology of augmented reality. For those who you don't know what this is about, so it's kind of technology. You are looking through your camera or through iPad or phone through some place, and there is a digital information brought to the image, so you can see like information which doesn't belong to the images, but it's also
augments your experience,
yes,
or augments
yes.
the information.
So it's kind of a magical, right? And I was fascinated by it also thanks to the Czech centers, because we did an exhibition for them called Czech Innovation Expo. And I saw how people were engaged and how they loved the exhibition. We used the technology for explaining the things. So I was like, okay, I can, with my diploma project, I can maybe do the project where I can take this technology out of the galleries and put it into the education somehow. I didn't know how. And I met some people, I read a bit about the education, and through some people, I met our physics teacher, František. And I was very, very much lucky because I met him, because he said me, okay, that's nice, the technology is nice, but it's not enough, and that was it. Like, and I was like, how come that's not enough? That's pretty cool. You can do the stuff with it, and it's gonna be engaging for the kids. And he said, like, look, if I should help you with that, I'm gonna be designing the tool for myself, trying to solve the problem what I have. And I have the problem that I can't use the classic conventional educational textbook, physics textbook, because they are just super unengaging, super wordy, and everything is there. The truth is being told there. There are no questions about the universe, about everything. There's no space for imagination, no space for the teachers to work.
I see.
So he said, yeah, so the technology is not enough. We have to bring something more, and something what will engage kids more than the education. And I was like, what's that gonna be, right?
So you originally came from a point of view, you've got this technology, augmented reality.
Yes.
It's going to be a winner no matter what. It's going to be a big wow effect. The kids are going to really love it. But then you found out from the teacher that that's not enough.
Yeah, exactly.
It has to solve the problem of how do I get the information in this book to them in an attractive way.
Yeah.
And that's the point then you realize you could use that technology to achieve that task, right?
Yeah, exactly. And he was, František was actually brought this idea that we will create a textbook, which is not actually the textbook. It's not like the, classic book where it's everything, but they are like the main thing are the questions, and the questions being asked from the teachers are the main thing. How we are not asking the kids for right or wrong answers. We want them to make them think, and that's the hardest part. If you are the physics teacher, that's the hardest part, how to make kids think. So with Vividbooks, kids are not memorizing the Archimedes law without knowing what this is about. They are not memorizing when the Albert Einstein was born or stuff like that. They are being asked, what energy means. Why do you think we need energy, or why do you think we have to know this and that? And I think that what actually was why this project is very, very successful is because of František and his question who brought this textbook to life.
Well, can we see this textbook? Can you show us maybe?
Absolutely.
Show us a bit about how it works, a bit about the process.
Yeah, sure. So basically you have these black and white drawings in here. I don't know which camera should I look. Okay.
Here it comes, right, we can see.
And you have this like black and white drawing, and basically when the camera sees the image, it works like a QR code. So it reveals some information, animation, or, like, let's say I will show you my favorite example in here.
I was kind of looking forward to seeing the apple or something.
Oh, yeah.
Gravitational.
So just a second. So you open the app, and you kind of look at the images, but it's very hard to.
Yeah. There we go.
And then you see,
it
see
comes to life.
Yeah, it comes to life, and you have like several situations. How those guys are trying to get this thing into the ground, and in the first case is not, sharp enough. And maybe Petra, could you? Oh, well. No, it's okay. Yeah, I think
I was absorbed by the animation. I've
Yeah.
never been really good at physics, and I think this would make it different when I was.
Actually, that what a lot of people were saying, that would make my life easier. But the thing is, what we realize is that when somebody sees Vividbooks, they say, "Oh, I would like to study with that," but that's actually not true. Because they never did. They never studied with the Vividbooks. They don't know what it mean. The things, what is the animation and the augmented reality for, is that they attract them. They catch their attention and they want to know more. And that's the same thing works with the kids. So our Vividbooks animation are like the opener for the class. It works like the first 5 minutes, and then the discussion start. And the
So it's like a sort of a gateway technique to grab the attention of the student. So the problem therefore was for the teachers. How do I grab this student's attention and focus and concentration? And then once they have that, then the information's there, right? Which, as you said, this is time-honored scientific information, which has been proven to be right, and therefore they can then gain access to that.
Yeah, I would say so. Actually, we always think that more experiment in a class, like real experiments, not Vividbooks, are the best. And that's where the kids are really engaged. But we know also that teachers have lack time to prepare those experiments. So we said, okay, the real problem is that teachers don't have time. So let's create a tool for them who will save their times for the engaging class preparation. And that's what Vividbooks are for.
Petra, is your school using Vividbooks?
Yes, it is. And you just reminded me of the reason why I actually wanted to use this type of material, and these are those questions. I like the design. I think it really represents modern textbook. The amount of information is right, but when Daniel, our physics teacher, and I were deciding whether go for it or not, whether he would be using it and what would be the effect he would kind of expect. These were those big questions that we were really kind of, ooh, wonderful, somebody did the job for us. Because we work this way. We have study plans for kids aged 12 plus, and we want, each study plan starts with this kind of big question which you cannot actually answer unless you do some kind of research and you go through things and it makes you think. That's, again, this wonderful idea. And I like that with Vividbooks, you can play with it. You can just have kids watch the video and make them think. I was just watching those guys with Hammer, and I was like, oh, this is probably pressure. It's pressure, bingo, you know, and it's so simple and easy to use, so we do use it. And the main reason for me, I don't know about Daniel probably prefers that kind of package thing, like he doesn't have to go for YouTube, he doesn't have to search for texts, he doesn't have to use really highly unengaging textbooks, and my reason were those questions.
Well,
I liked it.
Why don't we, you've got a video, haven't you, of maybe we can have a look at that, of
course,
of Vividbooks in action in a school environment. So
yeah.
could we have a look at that video, please, of Vítek's Vividbooks?
Maintaining kids' attention during a physics class doesn't have to be rocket science. Meet Vividbooks, interactive textbooks with augmented reality. Vividbooks combine high-quality educational content with contemporary design and state-of-the-art technology. Learning with them is fun and intuitive. Interactive lessons support students in active learning and encourage them to think about the world around them. Together with the teacher, Vividbooks helps children discover the true beauty of physics. We recognize that modern technology knows how to impress children. At the same time, we strive to implement it in an educational way that is meaningful. A seemingly boring science image can be magically brought to life through augmented reality, and that's when a child becomes eager to learn more. We are extra careful about Vividbooks content and are continually expanding it to make it easier for teachers to prepare an engaging lesson. Each lesson contains an accompanying text, interactive animation, and questions. While the text familiarizes students with the problem, animation shows the physics phenomenon in a fun and clear way. Questions that encourage children to think and formulate their own opinions play a crucial role in teaching with Vividbooks. Even incorrect reasoning does not need to be wrong if it provokes a class discussion. This is where the path to real understanding of physical phenomenon leads. We know that no textbook alone can guarantee a high-quality physics class. The work is still up to the teachers. We believe, however, that Vividbooks can be a tool that helps create interesting physics lessons from which students can take away joy and not fear. Vividbooks.
Well, that looks very engaging. So, Petra, that was, if I'm not mistaken, that was actually taken at your school. Those are some of your students. So tell us a bit about what was the feedback coming from the students?
The immediate wow kind of thing apparently worked better with younger kids. I mean, 11, 12 years old, rather than older ones who seem to be kind of overwhelmed with this kind of effective, you know, things. So yeah, they got immediately into it, started working with it, and in long-term perspective, we can actually see that kids find it very easy to use those materials. It's perfectly enough for them to read the texts and relate them to the experiments. So it really makes online teaching easier for the teacher as well as the kids. We also have the kind of feedback that it might be, for some kids, very important to be able to draw the papers. It's really nice that it's black and white. It's such a little detail, but for some kids it means a lot to personalize. Yeah.
And Vítek, does Vividbooks follow the curriculum or the various scientific curricula?
Yeah, that's a very good question, because we started with the classic Czech curriculum, which is in here in Czech Republic. That's actually interesting, because we are one of the very few countries who divided the physics, biology, and chemistry. So we start with the physics, and now we are finishing the biology and chemistry according to the IB and Cambridge curriculum, to be able to sell our product, outside of Czech Republic.
Right, because I mean, that was gonna be my next question, whether how international is this book, this book and this program, particularly because curricula are changing. There's merging of science subjects into making it more of a holistic approach to education. So those are things that you're presumably following and developing. And another question that occurred to me immediately is how frequently would they be used in the classroom? Is this a case of every lesson is with Vividbooks, or Vividbooks it's used at a certain time within the lesson just to make it a bit more exciting? I mean, how does it work like that?
From what I've learned from Daniel, it is like Vividbooks is the thread, but not all the lessons would be with Vividbooks. So Vividbooks represent the main textbook. That's the ultimate reference material. But at the same time, I know that Dan would use other apps and resources to, provide other materials, which is perfectly fine. So, yeah.
Now, we've used just now Vividbooks as an example, a successful example of how technology has been rolled out into the educational system. But Vítek, can I ask you as a designer?
Of course.
If we can go back to a wider perspective, what do you understand now are the key parts of any process of developing new material, whether it be augmented reality or something else, and finding it meaningful for educational systems?
Yeah, thank you very much for that question. I like that very much. Because when you think about design, when you think about designing, so most of the people will actually imagine like I'm designing this or I'm designing this glass, but going back to the history, this design was specified 70 years ago by a guy called Raymond Louis, right? And he was the guy who kind of put himself into the face of America. He invented like these Coca-Cola glasses. He invented those refrigerators, the steam machines, etc. He was everywhere, and he said, very important thing, I will design this to make this thing trendy. So after 3 years, it will become old, and you will have to buy a new thing, And this is something what design still do, be kind of supportive for capitalism, like why we have like third camera in our iPhones, does it really solve any of our problems? Well, and so that's one thing, this kind of designer area was, whose designer was specified like really, really long time ago, and I think we have to rebuild it, reimagine it. And for another example, I will go even more into the history, and it was the year 1905 in New York, and there was the lady driving, riding in a cab, and every minute the cab driver had to, step off the car, clean the window out of the snow, because there were no windshield, back then, because nobody invented them yet, And she was freezing, and she was super mad, and she was like, "Oh my God, why anybody can do something about this fact? This bloody guy have to get up and clean, and this cold air goes in the car, and I'm freezing." So she saw this problem, and she created a car windshield. Mary Anderson, a woman in 1905, and just because she saw a problem where nobody else could see it, So in my point of view, this should be the future designers, seeking for the problems, not seeking for the solutions. Because I think we have already enough those beautiful glasses, those beautiful tables, and beautiful designs around us. We are surrounded of beautiful things if we are willing to, but we have to,
So it's very much, from your perspective as a designer, it's seeking where the problems are and understanding what the problems are.
Exactly. Understanding the group of the people who has these problems, the small group,
Which means very effective communication with teachers, and presumably in particular the principals of schools who are helping managing the education at that school. So Petra, if I then pass it over to you, are you satisfied with the level of communication between schools and the private sector, who could potentially generate and design, new technologies, new applications for your
Yep.
problems. Do they knock on your door enough to ask you what are your problems? Are they spending enough time talking to you and your teachers to understand what those problems are?
Well, I tend to be spammed by all sorts of emails offering me whatever, and that doesn't really work. So I feel that there is a lot of volume, but lack of quality in terms of communicating the product. What I experience more often is that one of my teachers sees the problem and is looking for a solution to it. And some of them are, really innovative in this respect and would even report some bugs in apps and ask developers to change that. And sometimes it really works. That's fantastic. I do recommend this, right? Some kind of report bug, and get in touch with the developer. But what we usually prefer is identify the issue and look for the solution. On the other hand, I saw Vividbooks, I saw the presentation of Vítek and František at a conference, and it immediately grabbed my attention because they were showing something very real and hands-on. And there was the designer, but at the same time, there was the teacher telling us how he is using it in his lessons. And I think there is the power. So if I could recommend something or anything to businesses developing solutions to education, I do recommend that they divide the communication between two types. One is for teachers, about how very much practically and hands-on they can use it in the lessons. And as business, you really need to give something, not just talk about how it is supposed to be used under ideal conditions, but really give something, show it, show webinars, whatever. And parallel to this is the line with heads of the schools who need to be communicated very clearly. What's the value for money? And I know that it can be hard sometimes, that we principals see things as too pricey and for a very short time, not efficient enough, or hard to sell to the rest of the team, not just that, innovative person over there. But the money is always there when you really want it. And the best case scenario to me is when one of my colleagues comes and says, look, I started using this, I really like it, I implemented it into this and that area. I see other colleagues using it as well, and I think we would be able to fix this particular issue. For example, automated collection of data about how kids are doing, or feedback in real time. And these are really powerful tools that cost quite a lot. I don't have $2,000 in my pocket to say, okay, buy it. Usually we don't, we principals. But when teachers actually sold the tool to me in this respect, I'm very much willing to go for it.
I see. So a lot of your decisions are often based on your own teachers saying, we've learnt about this particular technology or application, and it really makes a lot of sense. And they petition for that. They explain how it could bring value to
Absolutely. This is the strongest point. On the other hand, I also admit that if I go to a conference or gathering or meeting and I see something highly inspiring, I will be the one saying, look, I want to try it. And
these conferences tend to be national conferences or these international conferences?
These days, both. And I tried everything. I tried international conferences, national conferences, but I'm still kind of demotivated to attend because it is so much about sales point. I often hear people talking about how challenging it is during COVID times to sell so many devices. How does it help me? Or, talk about ideal things, what this or that app is doing. So I really appreciate something which goes straight to the point. It's going to solve this, and it looks like that.
Vítek, what do you think? How would you react to that? What lessons have you learned about effective marketing and then interaction with schools?
Well, that's interesting because when you are dealing with the schools, you have actually few types of customer. The first is a kid. The second is a teacher, and the third is the headmaster, the director. And you have to choose like really specific language to speaking towards each of them. Your product is for kids. You have to go with the teacher, and the headmaster have to approve if they want it or not. So what we have learned, exactly what Petra said, I couldn't agree more, that you have to like really, teachers are really specific beings, and when they smell, that they are somebody is trying to sell them something, they are just running away. And I think that's fair, because a lot of people want to, or did come to the schools and say like, hey, we have this amazing, 3D glasses or interactive boards or whatever, just have it. And the director says, yeah, our school's gonna be cool, so let's, buy this thousands pair of glasses, and then they are being there, nobody ever used them, and they are all like, okay, so that's not really great example of, how education is being digitalized. So this exactly, when you don't have the problem what you want to solve with the technology, so then don't buy the interactive board, don't buy the glasses, etc. Yeah.
So, and do you attend also these? I know you've already said that you met at a conference, but is this one of your main routes of finding new schools with whom to work, or what are the other strategies that can be done?
Well, right now, what's worked for us the best, I think, is the webinars, because when you have the webinars, you can speak directly to those teachers. You can invite some of the teachers who are using the Vividbooks to share their stories, to exactly say something, why they are using it, what they like it about, and then that's much better than exactly just a sales talk, like, But then it has to come when it should be coming, when you're speaking with the decision maker. You have to really like be focused on that.
Petra, let's talk about differences in generations. So I'm presuming many of your teachers, coming from a generation perhaps similar to yours and mine, would have been brought up without devices of certainly no mobile telephones when they were very young during their education years, when they went through schooling. Whereas now many of your students were born into this technology. It's all around them. I've got 3 young children, all of whom are very, very competent on any device. They can seem to almost orient themselves automatically.
So are mine.
Nothing needs to be explained to them. Whereas I can imagine many teachers do need to be explained things, and there's that difference in digital skills. Did you find that as a problem at the beginning when you were looking to use more and more technology at school?
Of course. But you need to be very clear about the minimum standard at the beginning. So this is where we all need to get, regardless of how you feel about it. This is the minimum. That's what happened last year in springtime, when we decided to go for Google Classroom as virtual room and Google Meet as the communication tool, and that's it. So calendar, Meet, and this, and you need to know it. There's no other way to do it. So what we offered was basically endless support of both me. I turned back into IT trainer. That was fun. I stopped being head teacher or principal. I turned into IT trainer again. And other people who were supportive of both teachers and parents and kids. At the same time, we found really nice thing about kids, and that you can rely on them in terms of technology use. So it's sometimes, and I do not really want to be mean about parents, but sometimes it's easier to teach even very young kid how to receive task, fill in the task, and send it back to teacher, because you want to collect it. You do not want mom or dad to do the correction. So it's easier to teach the kid rather than invite parents repeatedly and explain, look, guys, you really need to change the account from your personal to the school one. And I know it's so annoying because we all have hundreds of accounts and everything. So we just relied on kids, even very young ones, like 7-year-olds, 8-year-olds, and they kind of managed. So, of course, there are differences. Of course, it's difficult, but let's just not collapse because of that. There is no competition. Kids will always be better with technology, and their kids will be better with technology.
Yes.
And I still think that we do not have to be sad about it. It's just as it is, and we can offer different things, perspectives, connections, and...
I think that's also a very positive thing as well, because how I see it in my young children is it's their opportunity to be the hero. So whereas traditionally mum and dad always knew more than they did, then even I consider myself as, technologically rather savvy, and I know my way around things. But I'll freely admit, that I think my my children in many ways faster, better, they seem to sort of almost with intuition know what to do.
Yeah,
And that enables them to feel, that responsibility of, actually, I'm already better than this dad or mum or even their own teacher. So have you noticed that sort of psychological point of view, that the children, it's sort of empowered the students and children to realize that they are, in many ways, the cutting edge?
Yeah, they are. You're right. Of course, you're right. But I always kind of think about it more as a competency. Like, I need them to be very competent and literate. And while we see a lot of great intuition when using apps and mobile devices especially, we do not always see that literacy to that extent. So while you may have a kid who's great with social networks and games, Minecraft, whatever, the very same kid might not be able to produce article using templates in Pages. So let's be very cautious, because what we've seen is that it's great to empower kids and show them that they can do it for themselves. Maybe they feel like heroes. But at the same time, we still need to introduce tasks that make them better and better with technology in terms of creating and producing, not just consuming.
Right. And Vítek, from the design perspective, are you constantly having to think about sort of the digital skill set of your users, whether it be the students or the teachers, when you're designing, and how does that change?
Yeah, exactly. I mean, when teachers were brought to this situation, I think what most of them had was a fear, and the fear was, to my perspective, that they will fail like a hero, because somehow the hero couldn't be able to send a Google Meet link, and that is what they were afraid of. So the way how we designed Vividbooks was, as simple as possible. Like, you don't have to read any manual for that, and because we know that teachers are worried about kids are being better in that, and also we are speaking in this language towards the teachers, like we are using very simple app and you can do it, and also in the other hand we are speaking towards the kids in the different medium than than towards the teacher. So let me give you an example. One teacher who is using Vividbooks here in Prague, so she said she found out that the kids are actually rather using Vividbooks than classic textbook, because they are reading from the app, and they are aware, they have the apps, they have Instagram, Facebook, whatever, but they have the medium, so you have the medium, you change the medium and you attract them. This information is, only you change the channel how this information is being told to them. And I think that's quite fascinating, the information is still the same, but it's not printed on the paper, but being told in the app, and suddenly it become more, tempting.
Fascinating to some, scary to others.
Yeah, exactly.
We just had this discussion with my colleagues today that we really don't know what the use of materials is going to be after kids come back to school. To what extent are they going to be willing to go back to paper sometimes, rather than having that wonderfully designed app that serves them with this or that. And it's going to be really interesting in 10 years' time to step back and have a look at how the use of educational materials changed.
Well, on that very point, I wanted to ask about, we all know now that in these times, in these COVID times, where almost all, certainly where we are now in Prague, in the Czech Republic, all children are at home, and distance learning and the online schooling is only possible thanks to technology, many technologies of which we've spoken about. But I was going to ask you, what do you think will stay once the children return? What have you found as a school? What problems that previously were not thought about have now been discovered? We were talking earlier about the idea of discovering problems. What problems have your teachers discovered that technology solves, and they're going to want to keep it when children return?
Now, there's a great area called collection of real-time feedback, which is something we had even before COVID. There were apps that would allow you to introduce material and be able to collect at the same time how particular kids are doing without calling their names and, specifically checking on them. You just saw that in your own device. Now, online teaching brought us into a situation when we do not have enough interaction. We cannot have a look over the shoulder. A child cannot have a look over his or her peer's shoulder. So what we were really focusing on are tools that collect automated data about students. That means the feedback, how they're responding, how they're doing, how they're drawing, doing quizzes, researching on website. And this is what we want to keep, even an offline lesson. So we had this discussion today about investing into great tool that might be integrated in an entire school so that we can collect the feedback. And it kind of runs in the background. It doesn't have to be the focus of the lesson, but you can still have a look into your device and you know immediately where each particular child is. So you know whether you can go further or whether you need to go back or whether you need to invest some more time into a particular group of kids. So that's fantastic. Another thing is collection of data about the evidence of learning. So we found this great opportunity to collect data about how children are doing and use it in terms of analyzing it, reporting to kids, other colleagues, parents, and save time. Because otherwise you spend hours and hours taking notes about how the children did from A to B. These are not just tests. This is really observing the child and how the child is doing in particular areas. Teachers usually call it activity in the classroom. How do you want to calculate activity in the classroom? So that's what we want to try to keep somehow and use the online experience to try to collect data more effectively. And materials in general. We like those materials.
That's sort of a quite a step forward in it's like a big data world where you're collecting the technology enables the more efficient collection of data sets from the individual students that could perhaps lead to far more efficient
and evidence-based.
Right.
It's not just my feeling.
That's one aspect of what we can expect in the future. And before there's several questions now coming through, but before we go to answer some of the questions from our viewers, let's just finish on the future. So Petra's now told us what some of the things that we expect schools are going to want to keep from this COVID experience. But Vítek, what's your perspective, both in terms of a general terms of technology and also the more specific terms of your project, of your business, Vividbooks? Where do you see Vividbooks going in the next 5-10 years, and where do you see the technology per se is going to go?
Well, if I should speak about Vividbooks, I would say that definitely is going to go towards this direction. Being able to tell, where the kids have problems with based on the big data, based on the evidence, and create the exact content for the kids to help them there. Also, like tracking the progress is very, very important. That's something what we have to work on. And I can, like imagine like a lot of function adding into the Vividbooks, but very important thing is that we have to realize if that's really us, if that's really about something what Vividbooks does, So we have to keep our DNA and also bring these, new functions based on not if they are cool or trendy, but if they worth it for the Vividbooks and for the user and the customer. And if I should speak what should be the future of education, I'll be very, very conservative here, because I believe that the future of education is in the people, and it's only about people and the, ability of the system to bring the good people into education. That's, to my opinion, that's all what's matter. And the technology, doesn't. Let's, imagine the world unlimited library of knowledge. The future that's already there. It's called YouTube or the Google. And do you think that people are getting smarter because of the YouTube or the Google? How they're using it? And I think, I'm a little bit afraid that those big ideas are being turned into something different than what they originally were. And when you see the classroom, when I was testing the Vividbooks first time in here in Davidse, there was a little guy coming to me and he said, "So you are coding this in the Swift? This is the code language Swift." And I said, "Oh my God, yes. How do you know that?" "Well, I was doing a little bit of that as well." And I'm like, "Oh my God, you're amazing, so clever." And then I asked our teacher, like, "Hey, this guy is really talented. Don't you want to do something about it?" And he said, "Yeah, I would like, but man, I have like another 300 kids here, you know. And unfortunately, I would like to be individualistic here, but I can't because I don't have, you know, the space for it." And, you know, that's it. The education system should be the one who will raise the individualistic, you know, side of the kid.
Right. So the future's going to be about using technology to provide individual educations to individual talents.
Yeah.
I believe so.
Understanding where that child is really performing well, boost that, and then help the parts that are, you know, that are missing. So in this changing world, Petra, any final comment about how you see the future?
How I see the future, what's going to be the role of schools? Because we had this period when we kind of reinvented schools. Maybe we will have to reinvent schools. What kind of institution is school? And thinking about future, I think I can't tell what type of technology is going to be used and whether there are going to be benefits or you know, some difficulties. But what I can definitely tell, not just from past couple of months, is that we are obliged to educate kids together with parents who are able to adapt to change anytime.
Okay, so it's all about adapting to change and the use of technology to engender that adaptation. Okay, with that, thank you very much.
Thank you.
But there's a few questions. Let's look at some of the top questions here. So the first one, who's from an anonymous fan of ours, how we can prepare our children, or how can we prepare our children for non-invented technologies? For instance, apps are developed by people who don't meet this technology at school. So I think I think the question is
It's absolutely by people who
trying to ask about, I suppose, how can we prepare our children for future technologies that are not invented yet, or can current technologies help prepare our children for a future that's so uncertain? I think that's sort of linked very much into your closing comments now. That we understand that the world's a changing environment, and the teachers and technology are going to try to adapt to that change and produce students and an education system that's going to enable them to be able to adapt to those new technologies. Maybe let's go to the next question from Luke T. How long did it take to create Vividbooks, Vítek, and how many people collaborated on this?
Well, it was so much amazing people, and it was about 3 years from now. Yeah, I think the 3 years from the first sketch, first idea, and then a lot of amazing people were involved, and, you know, bring some ideas or, you know, work on it really hard. It's like, yeah.
Maybe I can expand on that question. What were the key skill sets from the different people? So you come from a design background. You mentioned your work is with František, the teacher.
The teacher, yeah.
So he had an idea of the content, the material that has to be done. What else? And then you needed a programmer, I presume.
Yeah, we had a coder for the iOS and Android app. We have the company who is creating the back end and the web version where you can, which you can use for the distance learning. So you don't have to have the iPad or the phone. You know, you have just, you know, internet connection and that's it. Then we have the Animator. We have amazing Animator in India. When I was in India, she came to me and he said, "Hey, I would like to work for you as an intern." And I said, "Yes, of course." And she's the most brilliant animator that I have ever met. And then we have the copywriters. Then we have the people for marketing. And also one of the most important person is Dan as well.
Teacher from your school?
No, not this one. He's my partner, and he's the head of sales operation and marketing operation. And also, the most important person right now is our investor, who, you know, invests into me, into the idea that this can become the successful business.
Fantastic, fantastic. Well, there's another question. You were congratulated about Vividbooks, and we've seen today examples in physics, and there was a question that asked, where do you plan to expand in terms of the subjects?
Well, you know, that's a funny thing because a lot of kids are actually coming with their ideas, you know, of the subject. Like, hey, I would like to use it in the chemistry, you know, in the biology, and in geographic. So those are the subjects where we are going to do. And I hope that we will start with the chemistry soon, because we have to be very quick about this science subject before another companies who are doing AR will be ahead of us.
Yeah.
And what about sports, sort of exercises I can imagine you could bring to life? I can remember textbooks about how to do certain stretches and
Oh yeah, yeah. Or I was approached by the this school for drivers. You know, they would like to create these materials, and I think those
That
use
makes
cases
sense.
are kind of a nice, you know. But you have to still keep looking if that's really, you know, if there's a place for your technology there. Yeah.
Okay, let's a question maybe for Petra here, where Peter asks, where do you find your teachers from who can use all these technological tools effectively? He has seen schools where even tablets are collecting dust. Do you have any advice for Peter?
I do. Honestly, it always has to do with the head teacher or the principal. And it doesn't really mean that you need to be tech savvy or you need to be really wonderful with technology, but you need to be able to understand, and you need to have the knowledge, at least basic knowledge, of what tools are offered in the market that may be helpful because other schools are using it, other heads of the schools would recommend them. So it starts with you. And then basically your personality does a lot. It does the magic because it attracts certain kind of people while it does not attract other kinds of people. And at the same time, there is still this kind of minimum standard that you want to be achieving. And that's where you just say, okay, we all have to be there. And these are the types of support you get. And the support may be very wide and extensive and difficult at some moments, but I believe that just like with kids, we are all able to get to certain minimum standard. And then it's very similar. Like you would work with kids if you were a teacher. Everybody has a different level. People have different skills. Some will be wonderful with this, other will be wonderful with that. So while we have great teachers who are able to create videos, very good quality asynchronous material, we have others who would never go for the video, but they're able to use tools that help them and kids, and they're just fine.
Okay. Vítek, maybe a question for you. How do children take notes? Is it part of the Vividbooks? Is there space for making directly into the I don't know, the device some notes, or do you have to have a notebook ready?
Yeah, you can take notes in here, like in this place, or you know, this is like the basic principle of printed worksheets. So this is usually not a book, but just a paper. And I would just like to say that the taking notes is actually the most important part in the end, you know, because then the teachers are actually coming together with the students, and he's asking, okay, so what have we learned today?
Right, because one of the frequent discussions that you hear in education in relation to the implication of the use of technology is that it could be passive.
Yeah.
Whereas this ensures that there's far more thinking from the students, not just a case of I'm looking at something, I'm observing something, I'm digesting something, but I'm actually thinking about the workings of it. I'm actively making notes and the rest of it. Okay. From Luke T, which country is the best in terms of the use of technology in education? You've both had experience from abroad. What's your feeling?
It's very hard to say. It's school from school. I wouldn't be able to jump on that like that.
Yeah. So it's more school from school rather than nation from nation. Yeah, would you agree with that?
Oh yeah, definitely. And
yeah, but sorry, I could imagine that Asian countries would be far more ahead in using, for example, blended learning mode and other tools on daily basis. Yeah. Or countries where kids cannot actually access teachers, you know, there needs to be this distance. But otherwise, it's so much about schools, like school from school.
So, ladies and gentlemen, there you have it. It's not about the nation we live in. There's 25 countries I'm presumably speaking to right at this moment. It's all about the school. about the people, about the teachers, about the head teachers, the principals who are supported by people who understand the technology and creating positive content that we can apply to our educational system. So I hope you've enjoyed this evening's debate and discussion. I'd like to say a big thank you both to Petra and to Vítek for coming along and sharing your experiences and knowledge. I hope you all enjoyed it. And before I say goodbye, I'd just like to invite you all to our next Science Cafe, our 6th one, which is going to be on the topic of AI, so artificial intelligence. And of course, the Czech author, Karel Čapek, who was the inventor of the word robot. So I'll be there to look forward to seeing you all. And in the meantime, I just wish you a very pleasant spring and a fantastic Easter. Bye-bye.